Well, here we are, a little video conferencing now. We're going to talk live with Blues head coach Craig Berube, who I believe is back home in Philadelphia at the moment. And we'll get his thoughts on just kind of where things are at, what's going on. But I got some great questions I haven't had a chance to really ask him yet about maybe the last 18 months as well. So, Chief, first of all, thanks for making some time for us today. I know it's uncertain for everybody. So many fans, so many people's lives being disrupted. Yours, mine, everybody's as well. How are you doing right now?
Yeah, I'm in Philly with my family, so I'm okay. I mean, it is what it is. Obviously it's a little bit boring for sure. Not doing a whole lot, but we try to keep busy the best way we can, and do as much as we can. That's all we can do.
The National Hockey League and all these different leagues, they've dealt with work stoppages from different reasons, whether it be labor reasons or whatever. This one's unique. This one is so much out of the control of really anybody in this sense. You have to follow the instructions we're given by doctors, by the CDC, by political leaders. Has that impacted your perspective on just kind of how you mentally handle what's going on right now?
Yeah, well, it's obviously bigger than the game, and it's obviously way more important than the game. I get, other stoppages were about the game. This one's not necessarily about the game. It's about, it's a worldwide thing, and they're doing the best they can and try to get control of it. And that's, we gotta listen to the rules and regulations and do what they ask us to do so we can get control of it. So it's tough at the same time. It's you're used to being busy every day and go, and now you're at a sudden halt, and you gotta, kind of sit back, try to relax, and it's hard to do. It's not easy to do.
From that standpoint, just can you give us the feeling of just what the vibe is back where you're living, back in the Philadelphia area, of just kind of how people are doing?
I mean, people where I live, in the town I live in, I mean, there's people out, going for walks and things like that. We try to get our kids out every day and go for a bike ride. There's a lot of trails and things around here like that, just to try to get outside a little bit. But it's pretty dead. There's not much going on. Restaurants and things like that. You can get some takeout at some places, but it's pretty much shut down besides, grocery stores so people can, get food and things like that, necessities. But other than that, it's a pretty dead town. There's not much going on. But again, I mean, I think that everybody understands the severity of it all and what we need to do to fix it and get it under control.
Are you in touch with the players on a regular basis, or is it kind of now just in limbo now with the timing and already being, 10, 11 days since the season was halted?
I've reached out to every player, and I know I get my coaching staff to reach out to them too, and just through text message or phone call, whatever you choose, just to stay in touch with them. We send our strength coach, Eric, sends them workouts weekly to try to keep them going and keep them in shape, in case things fire up again. We want to be ready to go. So we're keeping in touch with them. We're trying to stay on top of them. And most of them are in St. Louis. A few of them left, but most of them in town there. So like I said, we try to keep in touch the best we can.
Yeah, and really it is all right now just about individual players, individual people, with our kids, whatever it may be. Just do what you can to stay ready.
I feel like I'm back in school again because I got 11-year-old twins, so they got schoolwork every day, and I'm sitting there doing this work with them. It's complicated, man. I'm having a tough time. I think my brain's working more here than it does during a game.
Okay, so my wife, Christy, she's a school teacher. So last night we were trying to figure out through Zoom, and which is how we're doing this, how she's going to communicate with her classes and basically teach classes. The kids in the Parkway District here, their e-learning starts tomorrow. They're just coming off of spring break. And you're absolutely right. If you haven't been somewhat understanding or somewhat trying to learn the new math and they're not stacking numbers and things like that as a parent, you got to bone up on it real quick. Like all of a sudden, you're back to really teaching now, and it's not teaching X's and O's in hockey. You're trying to carry the 1, move the 2, divide this by 4.
It's tough. I'm having a tough time. I'm not going to lie to you. Reminds me of when I went to school, I had a tough time then too.
Okay. What was your hardest subject in school?
All of them. I had a tough time sitting there in class. Like, to be honest with you, I couldn't do it. I really couldn't do it. It's just way too boring, and it was hard for me to sit there. and listen and pay attention and not, I was in and out of class quite a bit. So wasn't one to sit there. I had a tough time with all classes, to be honest with you.
How can you compare right now trying to keep the attention of your kids while you're trying to make sure they're doing the learning to keeping the attention of a group of hockey players in the window you have them at the rink?
Well, I mean, the player, when you got a hockey team and they're pros, that's different. They're dialed in. That you obviously have to rein them in at times and talk to individuals about certain things. But for the most part, they want to succeed and they want to be successful, not only as an individual but as a team. You're dealing with 11-year-old kids; they can get pretty distracted. And they don't see the importance of school, especially at home right now. So I would take the hockey team.
We're not going to let
easier.
We're not going to let them see the last 2 minutes we've just talked about. The schooling and your favorite subject part of it. We'll get that out of the way for them, so they don't see that. But take us back to that. Growing up in Calahoo, when hockey really took over as a focus of yours, and the impact that it had on your early days, as you said, just school was one of those things you struggled with to sit through. The role that hockey played in helping you get through it.
Yeah, well, my dad, my uncles, we had a pond out back, and we basically started on there. They'd clean it off, and we'd be out there skating. They had nets, and we were out there like at night even. We had lights on, the cars, they'd shine lights on it so we could see. We had an outdoor rink in Calahoo, and we played there, and we traveled around a little bit to certain towns not far away and play. Most of them run outdoor rinks, and then they built an indoor arena there, and it's still there today, same rink. But I think my dad, my uncles were obviously big influences on me as a player, and my cousins, and really the whole town, to be honest with you, from a sports standpoint. They were really into baseball and hockey, and took us under our wings and took us everywhere and taught us how to play. And they both played hockey and ball themselves. My dad recently just retired from hockey last year at 80 years old. He's been playing his whole life, So we're lucky, to have parents and family like that were so dialed into it. And I got taught well, I'll tell you that. And, obviously just carried on throughout my childhood and into junior years. And, you end up, going away and playing junior hockey somewhere. And then I got lucky and signed a contract and turned pro. That's basically
So your dad retires the year you bring him the Stanley Cup. So he followed the advice of retiring while on top.
He retired on top. He saw the cup and got the drink out of it, and that was enough. He was happy.
When you go away as a youngster in Canada and billeting and kids going to different towns to play junior hockey, there's so many different leagues. It's a very common part of the culture up there. But what was it like for you personally to go through that?
Yeah, it was tough. My first year I left at 16 years old, and I actually went with a couple buddies too from my hometown that I grew up with and played hockey with. We all went to Williams Lake, BC, and we all made the team. So we're all there together. But it's still tough the first time you leave home. I don't care what anybody says. Your first year away from home and away from your parents and family is not an easy thing. But, once you get through 6 months of it, you learn to really like it and enjoy it. And again, I was very fortunate to have a coach there. John Van Horlick was his name. We still keep in touch, who really taught me, a lot of the game and how I needed to play it to be successful, and really put me under his wing and, took care of me, which, I owe him a lot today for that, because that's the reason I really moved on from there. And, I played there for a year, and I ended up playing major junior the next couple of years and signed a contract with the Philadelphia Flyers.
What would you say if a kid were to ask you, or a parent were to ask you for their kid, what one of that lesson, what was the one lesson of success you find in the sport of hockey? What's the key?
I think just being, a humble person and understand how hard you have to work on a daily basis and not get too high and not get too low with things. I really believe in keeping an even keel about everything. and just understand how competitive and how hard you have to work if you want to actually make it at any sport. You look at a guy like Tom Brady, who's going to play again this year and sign a new contract with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This guy's got 5 Super Bowl rings, or I think 5 or 6. I don't know how many, but he could easily retire and go out as the greatest quarterback of all time. But he's competitive, and that's what drives a guy like that. That's why he's so successful. And he was a late draft pick, and everybody overlooked him. But just hard work and being competitive, you can see what happens, and it's still burning in him, obviously.
Has the matter of fact, straightforward approach that you have in both communicating and approach to just how you work something you had to learn, or has that just kind of been who you are?
I think it's who you are personally. I mean, I was always, really told that way myself, through my family, my parents, whoever, even a lot of coaches I had growing up were pretty matter of fact with, what you had to do better, what you weren't doing good enough, you weren't working hard enough. I think just a simple approach that way, and what you expect out of a player on a daily basis, game in, game out practice, they understand it. This is what it is. You got to work hard. You got to do these certain things if you want to be a player, for the St. Louis Blues and be an everyday player. And most guys really understand it, I think, and most guys really respect that part of it. I don't like to, try to tiptoe around situations with a player. And if, I have to not play a player or sit out a player, I tell him why he's out. A lot of time there's not really a good reason that he's out. He's just out because there's numbers and I'm going to play this guy tonight. So there's no reason to say, well, make something up. I just tell him the truth.
Right. So when you get drafted into the Philadelphia Flyers organization, your style of play that you became known as in the National Hockey League, was that the same style of play you had in junior hockey?
Pretty much. I think, I had a few teams I could have signed with, and I chose the Flyers at that time because they're a very successful team already. Been to the Stanley Cup Finals in '85. Young team, good team. And I had some real good advice from some people that, you can fit into their team because you're going to just play a role. And a lot of people don't understand that if you go to a good organization and a real good hockey team, you have an opportunity to play right away, which I did because I just fit a role. And if you go to a team that's not very good and not very successful, they're going to want more out of you. You know what I mean? Because they're not successful, so they're going to expect more. So I think it was a good choice. I obviously got an opportunity to play pretty quickly there and spent 5 years before I got traded. But, it was 5 really good years I spent there with Philadelphia and always, respect that organization and Bobby Clark and Paul Holmgren for what they did for me and give me an opportunity to play.
Well, and just the history of that franchise, the style of play that franchise had after, when they looked at going in to play the early days of the St. Louis Blues and that gave birth to the Broad Street Bullies, was it almost just a perfect fit, not just play-wise, but attitude-wise, culture-wise for you?
Oh, definitely. I mean, it fit my mold for sure. What they expected out of me and how I played the game was a perfect fit. And obviously the fans too. And I think that's a big part of it. When you got the fan support, which I had there the whole time I played there, they loved my style and loved what I did for the team and the organization. So it was a good fit for me. And I agree. A lot of times you got to go to where you fit and how it works for you.
I asked you a question a few weeks back when I was filling in for John Kelly on the Behind the Bench show. And I asked you about kind of going back to your attitude, but for the fans that might not have heard that, when was it in your coaching career? I'm going to jump forward to the coaching side of things. When was it in the coaching career that you learned just trust your gut, go with your gut, and make the decision and go with it?
I would say probably, Chicago Wolves, when I took over that team, I think I changed just the way I did things a little bit and trusting your gut a little bit more. You have a lot of voices around you all the time. You need that. You need input from a lot of people. It's important to have including your coaching staff. But in the end, you should go with, I think it's important, and what I've learned is that you go with your gut. That's the most important thing. But you got to have good people around you giving you advice. There's a lot of voices around me down there, and obviously there were kind of two organizations at the time, the Chicago Wolves and the St. Louis Blues. But I did what I felt was right. And it's, I'm here today. So I still take a lot of advice from a lot of people in the Blues organization. Doug Armstrong and I have a great relationship. He gives me a ton of real good advice, my coaching staff. But in the end, you got to just go with your gut.
Were you given any key piece of advice that jumps out to you as the team headed into the Stanley Cup final?
I don't know if there was any key piece. There's a lot of unknown going into them Stanley Cup finals. I've been there as a player a couple times and once as an assistant coach. So I did have some feel for it and what it was going to be like. I think, again, probably the biggest advice I gave our players is just, staying even keeled and blocking out as much noise as you can. I think there's a lot of, outside noise that goes along with it. There's a lot of people that want your time, including family, press, all that. As much as you can avoid all that stuff and focus on the game, you're going to have a better opportunity and a better chance to win. Like, I go back to that game 6, and I was so, worried driving in when I saw all the people there. I knew our players were going to be under a lot of pressure and feel a lot of pressure because of what, you saw outside the hockey rink. And, by the result of the game, it wasn't very good.
To that end, there's so many other things, handling family, planning, and that kind of stuff. It really is understandable now, isn't it, how it almost teams seem more relaxed and able to win that deciding game on the road versus home. There's a lot less distractions to have to deal with when you really are on the road versus at home.
Yeah, definitely. And, being a first-year team into the finals there, all those guys, haven't been in the finals until last year, not knowing what, everything that goes along with it. I think that's why we're so successful on the road, all playoffs, to be honest with you. We were way more relaxed, focused on the game only, no family around, no distractions, not as many anyhow. And, we had a great road record throughout the playoffs.
In-game adjustments in the game of hockey, in-game adjustments in sports are so important. I'm going to go quickly, just kind of series by series, and see if anything jumps out at you. In the Winnipeg series, what was an adjustment that you felt was an important one that you made for the team during that series?
I think switching the lines up. I went back to Schenn, Schwartz, Tarasenko, and then Perron and Sanford are a different winger at times on the left side there.
Sonny was up there for a little while.
What's that?
Sundqvist was up there.
Sundqvist was up there a bit too. So I think that switch with the lines was the biggest adjustment I made. I felt that I needed to get O'Reilly away from Scheifele a little bit, loosen him up. And so I played Schenn against Scheifele's line a lot. Physical player. Schenn played a real physical series, a physical playoffs, but in general, I wanted a more physical player up against the Scheifele line.
Round 2 against the Dallas Stars.
Insert Sammy Blais, I think game 5 or game 6, I can't remember, game 5 or game 6. His physical presence really changed the feel of the series. He did a great job of being physical on Ben and Radulov, and I thought that that changed the series a little bit. I thought they had a little bit of momentum until I did that, put Blais in there, and I thought he did a real good job. He scored a couple goals too, but I thought that lineup change was really important. I think that was I might have been the most even series out of them all, including the Boston. They're a tough opponent. They're a good team, really balanced. Bishop played excellent hockey against us. So it was a tough series all around, but I thought Blaze's physicality really changed things.
Was that hug of Pat Maroon after he scored that goal one of the coolest things you had seen?
Well, I was pretty happy, man, when Patty scored, I'll tell you that. So he come over and give me a hug. It was a good feel. Patty and I go back a long way. I coached him in Philadelphia as a kid. I really like Patty a lot and respect him a lot. Great guy. And, he's a big part of us winning the Stanley Cup.
All right, round 3 against the San Jose Sharks.
I think the one thing that stands out against San Jose would be how we took care of Burns and Carlson. I think we did a great job there, especially after game 1, of really focusing on being hard on and physical on those two guys, taking the puck out of their hands as much as possible. And again, the physicality was a big thing on them. There was a bunch of big hits on those guys. We ended up putting Carlson out of the series. And, I just think taking those two guys away really hurt their hockey team. They're a big part of their team. They play 30 minutes plus a night. They're on the offense, defense, everywhere, penalty kill, power play, they're everywhere. So I thought that we did a great job of really neutralizing those guys. And I think that was the reason we won.
And then finally, the Stanley Cup final. Was there a key adjustment made during the course of that series that you felt was a difference maker?
No, I don't believe there was one quick key adjustment. I think it was a back and forth series. I think the big reason we won that series was I thought that we did a great job in our top line, to be honest with you. Between Sundqvist's line and Schen's line, I rotated both of those two lines against those guys. They play a lot, and I had them out there either one or either the other. Obviously, Parenko and Bouwmeester too. But neutralizing that line 5-on-5 is the reason we were Stanley Cup champions.
Craig, an aspect of that Stanley Cup championship that I don't think gets – I don't know if it should get notoriety or should not, but it was for the most part – and I hope this doesn't sound poor. It was for the most part an inexperienced coaching staff when you look at how, some of those others have gone, whether a tenure. I mean, you had been a head coach before in the National Hockey League for a year and a half or so with Philadelphia. You had Mike Van Ryn, who'd been a head coach, but in his first season as an assistant in the NHL. You had obviously Steve Ott, just a couple years into being an assistant as well. David Alexander coming up into the National Hockey League. You had a lot of eagerness, but not a whole lot of coaching experience in there. What was it like as a coaching staff to go through that process really for the first time together like that?
Yeah, it was great though. I mean, our guys, those guys are smart guys. They've been coaches. They've been good players in the NHL. They're good coaches. I'm telling you, they're some of the smartest coaches I've been around, and I've been around a lot of good coaches over my time, and coaches with a lot of experience. But again, you got players like Steve Ott and Van Ryn who played the game and played it at a pretty high level. They got really good feel. Davey Alexander, he's not only a goalie coach, he does a lot of scoring scenarios for us and presents a lot of real good information from the offensive side of things and how goals are scored in the league. Sean Farrell, the video guy, again, been around a long time. Sean, as a video coach, but also as a skills guy, knows a lot. They know a lot. We had Larry Robinson with us, who had great insight. He's got 10 Stanley Cup rings. So we had a lot of good information from Larry that we could use. He's been there so many times, and he was great with us. And, he gave us a lot of confidence too, which was important. And, saying to us, you guys are doing a great job. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're going in the right direction. So things like that go a long way, but we were pretty confident we were doing things right. And, we had a good feel for everything. I think more important than anything, we had a real good feel for everything.
One of my favorite reads on a regular basis is on the Players Tribune, where they do the article of a letter to my younger self. Reading the one from Dwight Gooden, I thought was just spectacular. It's a neat thing. What does a Stanley Cup champion head coach Craig Berube say to Craig Berube going into his first coaching gig?
Into my first coaching gig?
Yeah. What would you tell yourself? You could go back and say, hey, listen, as you're starting your first coaching gig, here's something. What would one of those things be?
I think the number one thing for me would be communication with your players. I really believe that if you have a good communication line with your players, and on an honest one too, not just talking just to talk. It's got to be honesty, and what you expect out of each player and individual on a daily basis. I think you're really stepping in the right direction right away. I think your players are going to respect you. You have to have respect from your players. If you don't, I don't believe you can have success without that. I think it's very important. They may not like you. They may not like, some of the stuff you do or how you handle certain things, but you have to have the respect. And I think if you have open communications with your players and honesty with your players right away, I think you're stepping in the right direction and you're going to be successful.
Where have you learned the understanding of this is kind of the fun part about doing the video chats. This is what everybody is dealing with. So now every business is doing the video chat. So sometimes dogs will bark, and I kind of actually like the real life part of what of this stuff when you're in meetings and doing different video stuff. What does the what does the real life aspect of patience you've learned to let a player come into their own? In other words, whether it be you had Ivan Barbashev in Chicago, or even if it's getting a Colton Parayko in year 4, to year 5, the patience you need as a coach to, while you're under immense pressure to win, to let players develop the right way so winning becomes more regular.
Well, it's a good question. It's important for sure. I think, we're fortunate on our team to have the veterans we have and the depth there with the veteran leadership and veteran players that we can afford to bring in these young guys and have them develop while we're still trying to win a championship.
Right.
It's a unique situation there. I love how our team's built, and it gives us coaching staff and our organization a chance to bring in Thomases and Kyrus and Barbashevs, Blaze, Sanfords, all these young guys. Sundqvist, I consider him a young guy too. He really hadn't had a lot of NHL experience. Vince Dunn in the back end, Bennington in goal. I mean, we have such good veteran leadership and veteran players that, we can bring these guys along and develop them while we're winning hockey games. And that's important. And it's great for the organization because I'll tell you what, they're going to learn a lot more up here with us than they are in the minors.
So speaking of the veteran leadership that you had there, kind of amazing how special things work out. Alexander Steen gets hurt at different times, but and the way the schedule works out, plays his 1,000th game in Winnipeg. You understand the history. You understand those moments. You understand the importance of all that. Do you enjoy those special moments, watching your players go through them as much as you did hitting your own 1,000th game?
Yeah, I do for sure. I think, what happened to Stina there, and then he ended up playing that game there with his dad there. And, his dad being a great player there himself in Winnipeg for so long. He couldn't ask for anything better. I mean, I felt really good for Steiner, who's been a great player in this league and a great player for the Blues organization and a great person. So I do feel great for these guys when I can be part of that. Be able to stand behind a bench and see them get that silver stick. That's pretty cool.
Okay. Thomas Steen was sitting right behind the bench. You make eye contact a couple times with him during that game?
Oh.
In Winnipeg, did you see him sitting right there?
I didn't. I don't really look behind the bench too much. I'm too focused on watching the players.
What is something that when you're coaching a game now at the National Hockey League level, you have to fight your inner Berube to keep under control, to maintain? What challenges you?
Well, I think a lot of times, just the way the game's going, or, you don't always get perfect games, and you don't always, your team's not always going to have the energy level that's needed to be successful or be a good team that night. I think you got to, that's something you got to recognize as a coach early on in the game and understand the situation and be patient and not be, panicking, because your players, once you panic, they're going to start panicking, and that's not going to be good for anybody. I mean, you can look at the referees. Some nights they're not always going to be great, just like you're not always great as a coach, or the players aren't always great as players. They're going to have
broadcasters too.
The referee might not go your way every night. So being under control with the referees is important too, because if their players see you yelling at the refs all the time and out of control, then they're going to get out of control. So they're going to act like you do, and you got to. I think it's important that you got to represent your team well behind the bench. Be under control as much as you can. There's obviously times that you're not going to be happy with things, and you'll show your emotions, and that's okay sometimes too.
How much thought process did you put into what you would say to the team before Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final?
To be honest with you, not a lot. I don't think there was a whole lot to be said. When you get to Game 7, your team knows what they got to do. They're focused. They're ready. I felt good about Game 7 right from the get-go. Right in the morning, I felt morning skate was real good. It was comfortable. Team was loose. There wasn't a whole lot to be said. These things come to me as I walk in the room, to be honest with you, Curbs. I don't really make anything up. I don't write speeches down. It just comes to me.
Go back to when you took over. Everybody looks at January, but you took over this team in November. What was that month and a half, maybe 2 months of trying to get this team back to where you felt they needed to be successful?
It was a grind for a while. I think, there was a lot of different things going on with the team at the time, and I was trying to fix one of them at a time, to be honest with you. And it's not so much system stuff. It's mental. It's more mental than anything. And it was more about the team for me than how we played and what kind of style we were going to play. I knew the style would come eventually over time. The team would get how I wanted them to play, how aggressive I wanted them to be, but putting the team first and the locker room things, and inside the locker room, some of the stuff that needed to be fixed, that took a little bit of time, but eventually worked itself out, and we all got on the same page. And Binner joined us, and we had a real good 1-2 combination in net. We rolled after that. I mean, once we got all that stuff figured out in the locker room and everybody was on the same page, we were rolling, and I knew we had a good team. And when we rattled off 11 in a row, I knew we had a real good team. And, you get in the playoffs and anything can happen. You got to get some breaks, which every team does. I mean, you got to get breaks in the playoffs, and we've got a few breaks here and there. That's part of it all. And we played hard. And if you play hard and you work hard and you're highly competitive, you give yourself a chance to win a cup.
And you look back now as a Stanley Cup champion. You had a couple of days with the cup in the places that you live with your name on it. How do you put your kind of life in hockey in focus, or do you?
I don't know. I'm hungry for more, to be honest with you. I love all that stuff, bringing the cup back home, sharing it with family and friends, and then again in Philadelphia, and even in St. Louis, I brought it to a couple places when I was there, and just seeing people enjoy it. That makes me happy to see people enjoy it, be excited as well, be as excited as I am, it makes me happy to see that. I really enjoy that stuff. But to be honest with you, after all that was over, I was ready for next year again and getting back to playing. And I was really happy with our team this year too, the way they came into camp. They were very focused, very in real good shape, came in ready to roll. And I think we played some real good hockey this year, to be honest with you, pretty consistent hockey all year long. And we put ourselves in a great spot to, give ourselves a chance to repeat. So, but, things happen, what's going on here right now, and you just got to deal with it. That's part of it all. And, hopefully maybe it'll all clear up and we'll get back to playing. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it would be great to see what this team has done in defense of their Stanley Cup championship if they get a chance to playoff-wise defend it. and we just have to hope that things in the world calm down enough and go in the right direction to make that happen. I look over your shoulder there, and we see a picture of the Stanley Cup hanging on the wall with you there. Do you, every now and then, you walk by, do you see it, and you go, yep, we won a Stanley Cup?
Well, there's a couple mini cups in here too that I look at every once in a while, and that's a good feeling for sure. I listen. I'll never ever forget. Obviously what last year brought, and again, but I think it's important that you got to try to look forward to and obviously try to do it again. That's what we want, right? But it's always in the back of your mind that year and everything that went on, and it was a hell of a year, to be honest with you. I'm really proud of our players and our team and our organization and everybody that was involved in it. And it takes everybody to be involved and everybody to be on the same page. That's the most important thing, and that's how you have success in any sport. And we had everybody on the same page, so it was great. But Kerbs, I'm ready to roll again and try to win another one.
All right, most important question. With not being able to go to the rink, with not being able to coach games, just how competitive are the card games and the board games in the Berube household right now?
These guys are on the Xbox playing Call of Duty.
Have you started playing? Have you tried playing?
I haven't touched it yet, to be honest with you. I try to stay away from that stuff. I'm not too good at that video game stuff. Never played it. I don't really want to find out either.
You're gonna have to. You got to teach the kids the old. Hey, what's cribbage? What was one of the game on the buses? Would have been euchre, cribbage.
Well, yeah, crib. Played a lot of crib. On the buses and things like that. A lot of poker, and we play poker around here. We like to poker, so we'll get the money out, the jar of money and the coins and stuff, and the kids like to play. They all like to play, and they all know how to play, so we'll play some poker.
Texas Hold'em, or do you go 5-card stud with them?
Well, whatever the dealer chooses, different. Everybody will get a turn at dealing, and they can play whatever game they want. There's a lot of games. I grew up playing a lot of that stuff as a kid too, so it's fun to do.
That is awesome. Listen, Craig, thanks for giving us some time as we just try to wait this through, talk some stories. Maybe one of these days we'll get you on down the road here a little bit, and we'll talk bus ride stories.
You got it. Thanks, Kerbs. I appreciate you having me on. Enjoyed it.
All right, Craig. Thank you. Good luck. Stay safe, and we'll see you back here real soon, okay?
Okay, take care. Bye.
You got it.